So why is a congressman from Youngstown, Ohio at a Wisdom 2.0 conference? And the reason really is there are 22 veterans every day in our country that take their own life. So from the time Michael and Soren were on the stage until the time I finish, somewhere in America, some veteran who was asked to serve their country for whatever reason took their own life. And there's a spouse, there are children, there's a community, a family, a church that will all suffer because of that. In many school districts throughout the United States, there'll be 20, 30, sometimes 40% of the children in that school district that will never graduate from high school. We have in the next few years where half of our country will either have diabetes or pre-diabetes. And we all know what that does to individuals and our healthcare system over the long run. We know that there's a healthcare workforce that's burnt out. We know that there are teachers that struggle every single day in difficult classrooms. So that's why a congressman, a legislator, is here at this conference. Because what's being taught here can help all of those issues that we're dealing with across the country. This can help in every zip code, in every congressional district across the United States of America. And this can help people who may not ever buy a pair of yoga pants. But it can help. It can help people who may never shop at Whole Foods. And it can help transform communities across the country. So it's funny to come to a conference like this because I have a lot of people that say, "What are you doing here?" And one of the first conferences I was at was in New York City, and it was called Creating a Mindful Society. And it was, there were 3 or 4 keynote speakers, and John Kabat-Zinn was there, and Richie Davidson was there, and Liz Stanley was there, who's doing stuff in the Marines, and how to push all of this out into the world. And there was a woman there that I know, who I'd met and we had been working with, and she brought her sister to New York City. And she brought her sister to come to the conference, and the sister really didn't know a whole lot about mindfulness or mindfulness-based stress reduction, but basically came to New York to go shopping, which doesn't make her a bad person. And we started talking, this woman and I, and after talking for a while, the night was over, and we were all going to go up the street to grab a bite to eat, so we all started walking outside. It started raining, and the 2 sisters were running down the street, we were running down the street, then a big cloud burst, we started hustling even more, and then when the cloud burst hit, we all just kind of ducked in wherever we could, and the 2 sisters ducked in a parking garage, and I ducked in up the street a little bit in an awning, and the 2 sisters started talking. And the one sister that I didn't know said to the sister who I do know, she said, "Was that a congressman that I just met?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "A United States congressman?" She said, "Yeah. And he practices mindfulness?" She said, "Yeah." "And he wrote a book about mindfulness?" She said, "Yeah." My sister said, "Will he still be a congressman once the book comes out?" I grew up in Northeast Ohio. All right, excuse us. OH? There you go. We travel together, it's cool. So, I grew up in Northeast Ohio, went to Catholic school my whole life, And I spent a lot of time around people who had a real appreciation for quiet time, for contemplation, for praying the rosary, for meditation. I remember in high school, one of my coaches, in Northeast Ohio, football is a big deal, and one of my coaches, I remember every second period, I think it was, at John F. Kennedy Catholic High School, I would turn the corner and I would see my coach and my athletic director walking into the school chapel almost every day for a little quiet time, a little prayer, a little meditation. I remember going to communion one time as a kid in high school, and I looked over on the side of the church, and there was the old football coach praying the rosary off to the side, taking time to go deep. And that's how I grew up. And I flirted with different kinds of meditation my entire life. And until about 2008, after things got very hectic being in Congress for a while, representing Ohio, which is a big swing state and always politically active, 2006, 2008 presidential elections. And in the middle of the 2008 election, I was 35, and I was really feeling like I was going to be burnt out by the time I was 40 years old. And I knew the days that I meditated, because I always flirted with meditation. I'd do it 2 days, I wouldn't do it for 2 months. I'd do it 3 days, I wouldn't do it for 3 months. I'd do it for 2 weeks, and I wouldn't do it for 2 months. Just flirted with it on and off. But I knew the days that I did it, I was more focused, I was calmer, less stress, and I felt generally a nicer guy. So at that point in 2008, I knew I had to jumpstart some kind of meditation practice. And I got online and I found that John Kabat-Zinn was running a Power of Mindfulness retreat that started 2 days after the 2008 election. It was like God saying, get your butt to that retreat. And so I went to that retreat. And all of you know what a wonderful teacher that John is. But he increased our levels of silence more and more, hours to half a day, no Blackberries, no reading, no writing, no phone calls. And over the course of that 5 days, a slow decompression happened. My mind calmed down, my body relaxed. And then at the end, there was a 36-hour period of quiet time and meditation and sit and walk and sit and walk and sit and walk. And I remember at one point we were doing a walking meditation over by the brook, and I remember my mind and my body being in the same place at the same time. And that lasted about a second and a half. And then one of the first thoughts I had at that point was, this is like being in the zone. I didn't have a lot of in the zone experiences playing football in Northeast Ohio or basketball, but I had them enough to know that I've experienced this before. And let me understand this. You can get your mind, you can train your mind and body to be synchronized in the same place at the same time. And why didn't anyone teach me this when I was growing up? And that's what I thought, and immediately went to John after the retreat and said, this is unbelievable. We need to research this. We need to put this in our schools. We need to introduce this to our healthcare system. And he said, there's a lot going on. I'd love to introduce you. And the next thing you know, the book, A Mindful Nation, was born, because it celebrates the men and women who were pioneers in this field. So here's the question. And after meeting Michael Gervais earlier, one of the things we were talking about, and he repeated it again while he was up here, is how the coaching staff for the Seahawks asked the question, what do you see is possible for you? And I think we need to ask the question as a country, what do we see as possible for us as a country What do you think is possible for us as a country? Because we can focus on the problems I talked about at the beginning, why we're here, why we're doing this. We can talk about that. But the reality of it is that there are people in places like Ohio that are dealing with the highest level of inequality since the Great Depression. There are kids who live in neighborhoods that are so violent, in homes that are so violent, that their brain literally shuts down and they can't learn. And we need to understand those problems because they're in every community across the United States. And those of us who understand the power of some of these practices, with that understanding comes a responsibility to bring these practices to those people across the United States. That's our obligation that we have. So we see a country where it's possible that our veterans get the kind of treatment that they need, that they're introduced to integrative health and acupuncture and mindfulness-based stress reduction and the Project Welcome Home Troops and I Rest Yoga Nidra and these things that are healing our veterans. There is nothing more powerful, because I'll go to these VAs and I'll sit for a half hour in quiet, in meditation with veterans who are from the Vietnam War. And after 30 minutes, the conversation goes something like this. I'm talking to my ex-wife now for the first time in 20 years. I'm talking to my daughter again. I'm not so angry. I sleep through the night for the first time in decades. And what they always say, whether you're in LA or Washington, what these veterans have told me, we have a responsibility as veterans to go tell the new vets that are coming back, you don't have to wait 40 years before you heal yourself. We know that if we can get involved with our children with some of these programs early on and teach them social and emotional learning and mental discipline, that we can begin to shift the way they learn. See, I don't know what the economy is going to be like in 10 years. You don't either. We're working real hard in Ohio and Youngstown. We're trying to do additive manufacturing and three-dimensional printing and business software incubators. And in Akron, we have incubators and accelerators. We're doing all of this work. But we don't know what the economy is really going to look like in 10 years. It's so dynamic. It's moving so quickly. But what we do know is if we give our kids the skills they need, the mental discipline, the ability to tap into their creativity, their ability to be aware, to listen and work in a team. These are essential skills that Google and every other tech company here wants their worker to have. So why wouldn't we teach these in our schools? That's what this is all about. That's what the mindfulness movement, this is what the quiet revolution is all about. It's about transforming the institutions that are holding us back as a country. And you are aware of this. And as I said, there comes responsibility. You know, you look around our country and you see a lot of division. I don't know if you've noticed that or not in the news. Congress is at 4% approval in the polls. I met one of those people here at the conference a few days ago. I said, "Oh, you're the 4%. I've been meaning to meet you." So we have this division, and we have to break out of this left-right dynamic dichotomy that we're in. Mindfulness isn't for Democrats or Republicans. Like Jim Wallace, the great evangelical pastor, says, we don't need to go further to the left. We don't need to go further to the right. We all need to go deeper. We all need to go deeper. And if we go deeper, we can start imagining what is possible. You can start imagining what is possible. A country where the vets get the treatment that they want. A country where our schools are teaching our kids the essential skills that they need to be competitive in the 21st century. Training for our workforce, whether it's teachers or nurses or any in the healthcare workforce, our police, our firefighters. This is how we heal our country. This is how we transform our country. This is how we go to the next level or the deeper level or however you want to say it. But this is how we charge into the 21st century. Together, not divided. Not looking at what the problems are, but looking at what the possibilities can be. And like they talk about with the Seahawks or any great sports organization, what does it look like to you? What does it look like? And how do we build a system to get you there? So how do we transform our systems to get these children that are born into poverty, generation after generation, out of poverty? And in Washington, sometimes we get one party that wants to dismantle it and another party that defends the status quo. And I'm saying, let's innovate. Let's transform. Let's get teachers excited again about being in the classroom and educating our kids. Let's get parents excited about educating our kids. And let's build an economy that allows for some quality time with your family. You want to talk about family values? To me, that means having an economy where you can spend time with your family. That's what family values are all about. So we have all this transformation that needs to happen in our country and needs to happen in places all over the United States. And again, it's in every zip code. I'm sorry, but it's not just at a conference in San Francisco. This is not what this is about. This is not just for people who shop at Whole Foods. It's not. It's for the people who are in a food desert in Youngstown, Ohio, who don't get access to fresh foods. You know? That's how we can make a difference. And it's about seeing the whole broader coalition. And this is the last point I want to make to you. We have to put together a coalition of Americans, the millions and millions of people who are into this kind of thing, aware of this kind of thing. Yeah, it's the whole food shopper, it's the yogis, it's the mindfulness-based stress reduction people, it's the people doing all the work with the veterans, it's the integrative health community, it's the urban farmers, it's the sustainable farmers, the urban ag movement, it's the anti-GMO crowd, you know? It's all of them. But you know who else it is? It's the United Steelworkers of America. It's the teachers. It's the firefighters. It's the police officers. It's the Marine who may learn mindfulness-based mental fitness training and then comes back into the United States to be a nurse or a teacher or a police or firefighter. That's the coalition. The public workers, the people who pick up the trash and make sure your toilet flushes, you know? The people who make sure the lights are on. The people who clean our hotel rooms for us. This is about all of us coming together. And who could stop an agenda supported by all of those groups of people? You're in the minority. And if these groups come together and they're pushing an innovative agenda that is every day getting backed by more and more science, ladies and gentlemen, you have a movement on your hands. You have a movement on your hands that you're going to be a part of, people in Youngstown are going to be a part of. I'll tell you one quick story about how we got this into the schools in Youngstown back in 2008, 2009. Just so you get an idea, and some of you may be in education. The program that we put in, social and emotional learning and mindfulness program, there's a heavy on the teacher training. And on day 4 of a 5-day training, they invited me to come in and speak. So I got the initial $1 million grant for the schools to do this. And this was after my retreat, and I was learning more about it. I said, come on in, we'll do this. I'll be able to get some money for it, blah, blah, blah. Here we go. And so they invited me to come on the day 4 of the 5-day training. So I'm a little nervous because I was the one who brought the money and basically told everybody, hey, we got to do this. And if you know teachers, they love when a young hotshot congressman comes in and says, hey, we need to do this a different way. Let me tell you. Love that stuff. So I walked in, I was a little nervous, and Linda Lantieri, who's running the program, said, things are going great, come on in, and said a few words. And then they have this exercise where they take a globe that's stuffed, and they toss it to people. And the teachers would grab it and say certain things depending on the exercise. Well, for this exercise, they wanted to tell me how things were going that week. So they started tossing the ball around, and the teacher grabbed it, one of the teachers, and said, I've been waiting 30 years for someone to bring this into the field of education. I said, okay, off to a good start. Took the globe, tossed it to another teacher. She said, you know, I'm already treating my own children at home differently because of what I'm learning here. Another woman got the globe and she said, I feel like I'm born again. I said, all right, we're getting carried away now, you know. But they were just sitting for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning and 5 or 10 minutes before they would leave. It's not like they were sitting for an hour and a half or they were in a week-long retreat. But I just think we are going so fast. We don't even realize that sitting for 5 minutes has transformational impact on us. And then to do it twice a day. And then they took the globe, and there was a guy in the back, and there was about 4 dudes in the whole room. And I was one, and my press secretary was there. He was another one. So out of 70 teachers, there was just a couple men. So I said, okay, here we go. See what the fellas think about this. And he got it, and he said, you know, I thought this was a little squishy at first, but I had been looking for something to do. He was about my age. And he said, you know, last night I was at my daughter's soccer game, and I was actually at my daughter's soccer game. He said, I was watching her run. She's so beautiful. She's growing up so fast. The sky was blue. The grass was green. The sun was shining. He said, it was unbelievable, and it clicked. I got it. This is what we need to teach our children. This is what's important. This is what makes kids resilient. You can't promise a child that they're not going to fall down or fail or bang their knee or fall off the bike or get in a fight or get their feelings hurt. That's life. This does not make all that go away. It doesn't make you not lose your job or have a crisis. This is about giving our kids the resiliency they need to come back when that happens. That's what's important about this. And I want every kid in my congressional district to have that skill, because I don't know what the economy is going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be up or down or what's going to happen to them. But the best thing that we could give them are the skills they need to live in that world, to be in that world. And that's what this is all about. And when you see the teachers now, that school in Warren, Ohio, is now scaling up the program. They want to go K through 12. They're moving local money to support the program. The superintendent saying, we'll give you continuing education credits to get trained in this, or to keep your practice up. That's how you transform a school district, and that's how you transform that neighborhood. That's a tough neighborhood in Warren, Ohio. And that's how you change the city of Warren. And if you can change the city of Warren, you can change any city in America. That's what's beautiful about this. This is why I come to San Francisco to talk about it. This is why I have legislation, whether it's to support veterans with integrative health or social and emotional learning in the schools. We're putting a legislative agenda to take this movement and actually have action items to be able to pass. Went to these conferences for the last few years and learned so much. But now's the time for action. Now's the time for legislation. Now's the time for all of these different coalitions, these different groups to see themselves together with the steelworkers and with the integrative health people. We're all thinking about the same thing. How do we increase the level of possibilities for that young man, that little boy, that little girl, that but for some help, who knows what may happen? Who knows what path they may end up taking? And we've been talking about a lot of these issues for a long time. And I like to share this quote with this crowd from 1968. And it talks about where we can go, what we want to do, and how long we've been making this fight or making this move. And it also reconnects us to, I think, what can help us get there. And that's by connecting to the deep values and priorities that we all share, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as human beings, citizens of a great country and of a great world. This was Bobby Kennedy in 1968. Too much and too long, we seem to have surrendered community excellence and community values in the mere accumulation of material things. Sound familiar? Our gross national product, if we should judge America by that, counts air pollution and cigarette advertising and ambulances to clear our highways of carnage. It counts special locks for our doors and the jails for those who break them. It counts the destruction of the redwood and the loss of our natural wonder in chaotic sprawl. It counts napalm and the cost of a nuclear warhead, and armored cars for police who fight riots in our streets. It counts Whitman's rifle and Speck's knife and the television programs which glorify violence in order to sell toys to our children. Yet the gross national product does not allow for the health of our children, the quality of their education, or the joy of their play. It does not include the beauty of our poetry or the strength of our marriages, the intelligence of our public debate, or the integrity of our public officials. It measures neither our wit nor our courage, neither our wisdom nor our learning, neither our compassion nor our devotion to our country. It measures everything, in short, except that which makes life worthwhile. And it tells us everything about America, except why we are proud that we are Americans. This is about taking our politics from a transactional politics to a transformational politics. That is what this conference, in my estimation, is all about. And that is what the people in Youngstown, Ohio, want to happen. Thank you so much.